we'll just let these extra people in. And I will tell them, hello, 2 new people who just came in. I'm recording this, and Google tells me it's a legal requirement. I had to tell you that you are being recorded. But I don't think your face will show in the recording unless you speak. But still, just so you know, because I'll put it on YouTube as a way of sharing it around with everyone afterwards. So let me now share my screen. Can you see a screen full of, I was going to show you when it's just loading.
Yeah, talking web.
Yeah,
yeah, you can see it.
Cool, cool. Right. That's hard. Let's do it.
Google March Core Update Masterclass, yeah?
Perfect, thank you very much, yeah. It's not the version with all the little boxes. Right, so, yeah. So, thank you all for coming along. Today we are talking about Google's core update that it did in March. I've also got to keep an ear out to let other people in as they come. I tried to make a colleague co-host this morning on another one I did, and that didn't work. So anyway, I'm Lisa. I run a web development company based just outside Bristol, and I've done that for about 19 years, and I've made websites since before then. Our USP, we're 18A Productions, our USP is that we can code whatever you need from scratch. But that's not to say that we insist on coding it from scratch. We're very pragmatic in our approach, and we're very keen to find the right tools for the job. I also often refer to my job, you know, when it's like your company, so you wear all the hats, so I do wear all the hats. So one of the hats I sometimes wear, I always call myself a solutions architect, because it's about finding the right tools for the job. And sometimes it'll be something off the shelf, sometimes it'll be something off the shelf, but rather than have your users like log in there and then also have to log in there, we can do the cleverness so that it's seamless and that the UX is really good. When I say that we're a technical company, or that coding is our bespoke coding is our thing, it kind of accidentally gives the impression that we're not creative as well, but we do the creative as well. And a lot of agencies do creative as well. However, also a lot of agencies use us to outsource to. When a project comes their way, that they've got all the big shiny clients, but a project comes their way that is a little bit too technical for them, or they're not quite sure how to approach it, they'll come to us, outsource to us. Because we've been doing this for 20 years, lots of agencies kind of used us to help themselves get sort of started on the digital side of things, and that was all cool. So yeah, that's kind of our background. We also do strategy, if anyone, like just on smaller scale projects, and Tom and I are very hands-on directors. We can be like fractional technical directors. If you've got an agency or you do stuff in-house and you just kind of want a fresh set of eyes on things to check, that's what we can do. Right, I'm just letting people in. I'm trying to move these through. So SEO in 2026. How people are finding answers is changing. It is definitely the biggest change we've seen in all the time I've been making websites, and all the time I've been teaching SEO for like 19 years, and this is bigger changes than I've seen since then. Last year, when I was starting to read about all the stuff you had to do to get found by AI, the alarmist in me was like, oh God, this is all different, and this is all going, and SEO's gone, and finally got around to recording my SEO course that I've been teaching all these years. Now there's no blimmin' point. But actually, then the realist in me is like, no, actually, so much of this is the same, because AI is just a different machine. It's still a machine. It still needs technical SEO in the same way it always did. So if you've been doing your technical SEO, we're going to talk through what technical SEO is a bit more, or some examples of technical SEO during today. In doing your technical SEO and you're up to date with it, there's not that much has changed. It's just kind of a different way of organizing your content and things like that. Oh, Sarah. Hi, Sarah, letting lots of people in. Hi, Sarah and Kat. People I know just come in. So we'll just go through it and what it is that has changed. So in March, Google did some updates. Some people say they didn't see much of an effect, but Search Engine Land have published research that they've worked on with someone else, that 80% of the top 3 results shifted. So if you think of all the results for every search term that they can check against, 80% of the top 3 changed, which is massive. But what I actually find even bigger is that 1 in 4 of the top 10 pages fell out of the top 100 pages. So if you were coming in the first 10 pages in Google, if you were coming in the top 10 results for something in Google, which admittedly wouldn't necessarily be first page anymore because there's so much stuff going on there, but you're in the top 10, your result was in the top 10, and suddenly you drop to being in the top, outside of the top 100. Wow, you've just,
It happens to me.
didn't you? Yeah, it's crazy. That's a massive, big change. So that there have been some quite big changes. I meant to say, for everyone who's just joined, you're being recorded. I don't think your face will be shown unless you speak. But yeah, just to let you know that you're being recorded. And also, if we'll do questions and answers at the end. So if you think of anything you want to ask, keep hold of it until the end, but feel free to put it in the comments if you want, because if you are worried you'll forget it or anything, you can just pop it in the comments. Hi Kat, just in your comment. Then you can pop it in the comments and we'll go through them later. So what Google actually did in March was, before they did their search update rollout, they did a spam update. And they kind of describe it as, or I've seen someone describe it as kind of like clearing away all the crap before then they can start afresh with the good stuff that they're doing in search. So it was a spam update. See what I did there, obviously, with the amazing photography. And one thing, I know that's not very clear, I'm afraid, but it's thin content. One of the things was thin content. And this has been, and this I think will be a big part of why the search results have changed so much, why pages in that top 10 have fallen out of the top 100, is that websites and pages that were set up purely to game SEO have been hit. And this is like what we were saying with Panda and Penguin. I forget which way around they were, like over a decade ago. And they gave their name, they used to give their updates like animal names. They went through a little phase of that for reasons I won't bore you with right now. But it was thin content. So if it's content where you have just, for the sake of it, made a page about a town and written a paragraph about a town because you cover that town and you just want to try and rank for that town, that's the sort of stuff that's just too thin. It's thin, that means too sparse, too little. It's not bringing any quality. Google want to be helpful. They've got helpfulness that they've got refer to, and they want to be helpful. And if they're not, oh, that's weird. Sounds like someone's trying to get in. So you can find yourself kicked out or very heavily penalised if you're putting forward not useful. The other thing is spam sites. So I don't know if you've ever come across this. We used to know someone that did it quite a lot, like 20 years ago. So it's not a new thing. Someone buys a domain that has run out. So I don't know, say visitcambridge.com suddenly became available because no one renewed it. Someone would buy that domain, visitcambridge.com, and they would pile on loads of content about Cambridge, which, let's face it, is like so easy now because you just get Claude to write it for you. You'd make a little website with just some content about Cambridge, and you'd put it out there. And then it would be online. It would be carrying on with that domain that had all these authoritative backlinks to it, that had been around for years, that had all the authority of whatever was there before on that domain. You've now used it and put some content on it, fine. And then you use that to link to you or to do other things that are kind of manufactured. You've made this website just as a way of scooping up that domain because you know it was a good domain and putting other stuff on it. That is a spam site. People have done that for years. People, I wouldn't be surprised, well, people are obviously still doing it because Google have clamped down on it. But if you have got an SEO agency doing your SEO, just ask them if this is something that they're doing and that you should be wary of, if you should take it down. Because it's not necessarily, we have always called them spam sites. That's not a Google term. That is what we've personally in-house called them. But that's not to say that they're necessarily awful. You know, I wouldn't like sack your SEO company if you found out they've been doing it, because it was just like an idea. It's just another thing you could do, using a good domain, putting useful content on it, and linking to you from it. It's not outrageous, but it's something Google don't want people to do. So just try and find out if you've got any of that going on. A big thing they've clamped down on is Google reviews, and this is a nuisance for me. This one isn't great for me. So a few different things about Google reviews, which are important for a lot of businesses to understand this. I did a talk this morning for a group of marketers in hospitality, so it was all different restaurant chains and things like that. And a lot of these things could really like screw them over. So one is you can't ask for just positive reviews. So have a check through, and the reason this is a spam update, but it's also to do with SEO because if you've got good Google reviews, that's really good for your rankings and local SEO. So it all feeds into your overall SEO. You can't just ask for positive reviews. So I would typically say at the end of one of these talks, I hope you enjoyed today's talk. If you did, I'd love it if you could leave me a review. And I can't say that now because I am therefore asking, if you enjoyed it, please leave a review. So you cannot only ask people who give you positive reviews. You can't only just ask for the people who are happy with your service. In the real world, if they've come into your shop, if you've done their nails or something and you know they're really happy and you just say, oh, can you leave me a Google review? Google's not going to know that, but still, that's how it's supposed to be. You shouldn't gain loads in one day. So the idea behind this is that you haven't just gone and bought a load of fake reviews from India or something. So you should be accumulating them gradually over time. And the reason that is also a problem for me is because we work with clients for years and decades, or at least long projects. So we don't get them very often. But then on days I do a talk, they can come flooding in a bit more. So I will get spikes and it will deviate for me, but I'm not going to not do it for that reason. I think Google will learn that sometimes that does happen. Sometimes people do events, sometimes things happen that mean you get a spike in reviews and it's still legitimate. I think that one, you just don't do anything dodgy and just overall get the reviews and Google should be happy with it. But what it does mean, like I said to the restaurants this morning, don't email your customers like every 6 months and say, if you've been happy, please leave me a review, and then have loads of people leave a review. Instead, email each one after you've seen them, and so they're trickling through more. You shouldn't name particular people. Again, not great for me because my reviews often say, oh, Lisa's talk today was really useful. But I think where this one comes from is actually, it was quite apt for the hospitality sector this morning, because if the idea is if say a 17-year-old girl starts working at a restaurant as a waitress, and then she puts on her college WhatsApp group, oh, I've just started working here, can everyone leave a good Google review so my boss thinks I've really hit the ground running, and you put my name in it so you know he's talking about me, that's obviously not genuine. So that is what they're trying to avoid. I think you can't stop people putting your name in. If you've given a good personal service, people might well say, I particularly like meeting so-and-so today. But it's just, don't ask them to name someone in particular. If you are running a team and you know that team do tend to ask people to name them, so if you know that the waitress in your restaurant will always say, oh, I'm Lisa, please mention me if you leave a Google review, you have to train all your team not to do that, not to put their names forward. But then again, don't panic if the odd name does come through, because that's going to happen. You shouldn't ask people to mention specific keywords, so you can't spoon feed what they're going to say so that your reviews are optimized for your keywords. And you shouldn't get all the reviews left from one IP address or device. So what this means is, do you ever check out of the hotel and there's an iPad at reception and they're asking you to say what you thought of it and leave a review there and then? You can't do that anymore. You can't come around with a tablet and at the end of the service and ask someone to leave a review in Google. This is where TripAdvisor will be different, your own review system, Trustpilot, whatever, that's all different. This is about Google reviews. So you're asking something, ideally you ask someone from their phone to scan a QR code or whatever and leave their own review from their own device. You shouldn't incentivize reviews. So if you are doing anything in your team that says, if you are rewarding the person who gets mentioned the most in reviews, not only should their name not be mentioned, you also can't incentivize that whole thing. So ask them you can't make that something that dictates a bonus in your company or anything. But also for me, I genuinely do not like taking up people's time. And I find it like a massive ask, even if it's someone I've worked for ages and I know they're really happy with the service, I still feel like it's a massive favor to me if they take a minute to go and write me a review. So I will often say I would feel more comfortable asking for a review if I could say, and I won't charge you for that last update, but I can't incentivize reviews. So you can't. That's a big change in Google, and that can if you didn't take heed of those things, that wouldn't be good for your SEO. So back to the whole fact that AI is a machine and Google is really leaning. I know we're talking about Google today. I do a lot of talking about AI, but obviously Google are really pushing their Gemini offering. We're going to touch on that a bit more later, but Google are going more and more with their AI kind of led search. And AI really likes structured data. Now, structured data has always been around for, well, not always, for like well over a decade. And we've got a client, for example, who we built their site over a decade ago. They get over 1 million visitors a day. Some days they get like 2.5 million visitors in a day. And we've always had structured data on their site. But it's been kind of the big sites like that we would have bothered with it on. We haven't done it on smaller sites because it just has taken a bit of developer time and budget, and it's not been that important. But it is increasingly so. So in this quote from someone who was doing a study last summer and put together like a framework for how they felt you should get mentioned by AI. One step in the framework emphasizes using schema markup and structured data on content, a tactic we might have considered optional before, but in our experiment, it proved critical for signaling AI algorithms. And I think that sums it up. Something that used to be a nice to have is kind of now really important. So I just want to talk to you about what structured data is. Say, in structured data for a start, it does not show on the front end of your website. It's nothing your visitors will see. It is purely behind the scenes for robots. So you might write on your website, next Monday, we're holding our annual Christmas party. It's at 7 o'clock at the Avon Gorge Hotel and tickets are £5. Fine. A person reads that. Maybe they know when you sent it, so they know which Monday you're talking about. And maybe a human kind of knows a Christmas party is unlikely to be at 7 o'clock in the morning, so they just infer it will be 7 p.m. AI doesn't want to guess. Google robots, they don't want to guess. They want to give the right answer. They want to feel safe in their answers. So if they were like listing Christmas parties, they might not list this one because you wouldn't be a safe bet that they would get it right. Instead, they would prefer that you wrote it out like this. So if you look in that little grey box, this is the structured data that goes behind the scenes. It says type, event, name, Christmas party, start date, and then it's a little timestamp with a time in there as well, and end date, and then a timestamp, and it says it finishes at 11. And then a bit later on, it says what's the offer. It's a name, a ticket, and a price of £5. So, and the last one says availability in stock. So it's just explaining to the robot exactly what you mean. And then the robot feels safe that it can use that data and give it to someone. This is how, when you Google cinema times and Google comes up with every time you can go and see whatever it is you want to see, and you haven't actually been to Odeon's website, that's how they're doing it. They're pulling back structured data and displaying things in the search results. So the idea of people losing clicks has been around for a long, long time. And it's getting worse. We'll talk about that later. But when structured data was first being used, you kind of wanted it because it made you stand out in search results, but it was still going to be reducing your clicks to your website. So to do structured data, you code it, you write the code, like in that grey box there, you write it out. If you have a developer, they can write it out. You can look how to write it yourself, you can generate it online, but you've got to then be able to put it into the right parts of the code of your website so it doesn't show for people. So because when I teach SEO, which I've done for like 19 years, I want to give people the skills to do things themselves. I want to give them the ability to do things themselves. And last year, when I was hearing how all the more important structured data was, I was like, this is one of the parts of my SEO training that I can never give people the knowledge to do themselves. I'm not going to teach someone to code in some SEO training. That's like beyond what anyone wants to do. So I thought, right, we need a system that is just really easy for someone to fill in a form and generate some structured data. And that's what this is. AI profiles, we've made it, it's our tool. And you just go there, you fill in a form about yourself, and it gives you a page that's a bit like a LinkedIn profile. It's just got everything you've entered, like all neatly laid out. But that page that you see doesn't really matter or count. We only did that so that you could see something. What really matters is behind the scenes of that page is all the structured data, like in that grey box, and all the different JSON, it's called JSON, and an LLMS.txt file that we'll talk about in a minute. All that stuff is behind the scenes, and that's what AI profiles give you. I want to really, really stress that the ideal is to have structured data on your website. A profile elsewhere written in structured data isn't going to be as good as having that actually on your website. So I don't want to just sell you this blind and tell you this is absolutely the way to do it. The way to do it is to have it on your website. But if you haven't got a developer on tap, then do this, fill in the form, generate the structured data, and link to this profile from your website, so that the linking to it from your website is the thing that ties it together. If you didn't link it, fine, it's still a profile, and we submit that to robots and let them index it, and that's fine. But linking it to your website is really cementing these two things go together. There's a promo code in here so that you can do, if you did want to do AI profiles, you can do it for £24 a year. But I'm also going to email you one later that has got an end date on it, that gives it to you for £20 a year, and it renews every time it renews. It would still just be whatever price you pay when you sign up. So yeah, promo code here, but look out in your email for an even bigger promo code. And I'll send around these slides as well in the recording later, because am I recording? Yes, I'm recording. I certainly hope that little dot means I'm recording. LLMS.txtfile is a new initiative by some clever AI fan people, which is, so an LLMS is a large language model, and that is what is behind the AI that we talk to at the moment, is the large language models. And a LLMS.txtfile is just a simple, a bit of code, and then you can, I've seen a question about Shopify, so I will come back to that. You can just write some key information about your business. AI profiles will generate you one, or you can ask a developer to write you out one. There's lots online about how to generate one. You can go to that link that I've given there that tells you what needs to be in an LLMS.txt file. They're very quick and easy to make for a developer. You just have to discuss with them what you wanted to put in it. So, you know, it's not going to be minutes just because you've got to have the conversation about what you want in it, but the actual writing it up is like, it's like less than an hour sort of thing. But yeah, so you could really consider getting an LLMS.txt file. Another thing that I've read, so Google, one thing about these Google updates in March is that they haven't, I just suddenly had a thought. I hope I've got the right slides or something. I'll come back to that. They haven't told us exactly what they've done in this set of updates. Sometimes they will say exactly what they've changed, and they haven't on these ones. So one of the things I have read, though, is that they've increased the importance of site speed. I am just going to pause this, as I have suddenly remembered that I put some slides somewhere else. I'm very sorry. So bear with me one moment. And as much as I went through it, here we go. I just want to show you this one, and then we'll go back to that other. We've still got people coming in. Right. Can you see a picture of my face? Yep, thank you. So, a big part of Google's March updates is about a big part of Google's updates is about knowing who you are, knowing who the experts are, learning more about who is the expert in their field. Okay, so there are some properties, some tags we want from structured data that are more important than ever now. So when I showed you that little grey box about structured data, and there was like event and time and price, those aren't just terms you pick and choose whatever you want. You go to a website called schema.org, or a developer does, and you look at what would be relevant from like this predefined set of rules that you're going to be using. The structured data is a framework that already exists, is what I'm trying to say. You think about what you're going to use, which tags you're going to use. And 3 tags that are particularly relevant now, especially after March's update, are same as, knows about, and skills. We already had same as and skills on AI profiles, but we've added knows about since the March updates. So what they mean is that you could do this even if you were, I've said to the marketers this morning, regardless of their restaurant website chain, they might want to do this just for them as a professional marketer wanting to like have an online CV sort of thing. You would, if you were using AI profiles, you could use these, but also these tags, try and get them on your website. Same as means where else are you or your business, if it's your business, around the web. So in that picture example, I've got an Instagram logo, I've got a LinkedIn logo, I've got 18A, which is our company agency, I've got Site Vitals, which is a tool I'll talk to you about in a minute. So those, where I blog on those sites and my profiles on those sites, they are also me. So they are same as. Then in the teal boxes, I've got knows about. So those are the topics that I know about. So we've got SEO, digital strategy, project management. If you put those on your website, you are telling the robots, hey, if someone's looking, not my camera lens. If someone's looking for one of those things, that's me, I'm over here. Come and find me over here. So that's knows about. And then skills are the things you do. And the things you do and the things you knows about are going to be really quite similar at times. You might even decide you need to put the same in both, fine. I've kept them slightly different in this example. I've got copywriting and public speaking and SEO audits as skills. And then I've got UX, web development, solutions architecture as knows about, as more broader topics. But if, for example, you're a PHP coder, you could, because I was thinking about this for the guys, they know about PHP and they also have the skill of PHP coding. So there could be a place, I think, where you could end up with both of them in there. So that is just the 3 tags that are all the more important since the March updates, because we're getting on to why, but I wanted to keep them in the structured data section. I'm going to stop sharing that one. And then to this one. And we're on site speed. Share again. Okay, can you see a picture with like lines, like super switchy lines?
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. It takes a while for it to like come up in the right place for me. Okay, so site speed has been important for a really long time. Google doesn't want to hang around and wait. AI, as in Gemini, but also other whatevers, doesn't want to hang around and wait. People, unfortunately, nowadays do not want to hang around and wait. People have like the shortest attention spans ever, don't they? So site speed is really important. If you've heard of Core Web Vitals, if you've heard of Page Speed Insights, it's these things that Google are using to measure how fast your site is and to give you sort of goalposts to aim between to get your site fast enough that it's happy enough with it, that it counts, that it's fast enough. And fast enough is kind of a bit of a generalization because it's kind of how fast different things are, how long it takes the longest thing on the load to page to load, how long it is before someone can interact with the page. There's lots of different elements that it times. But what I have read, like I said, Google haven't officially said what changed in this March core update, but what I have read is that those bands have narrowed. So if you were used to testing your site before and you knew you were okay, but maybe you're a little bit borderline, rerun a speed test now. I'll give you a link in a minute so that you can check you're still within what Google counts as okay. One of the biggest, easiest things you can do to help your site speed is check your images. So if your images are like chugging, like, you know, when an image starts to load and it comes down in little bits and little bits and little bits like that, it's because it's this massive big image that's too big for the space that it's supposed to be in the page. So uploading a new resized image will help that site speed a lot. We've got a free tool that you can link to, because I'll send these slides around, you can use the tool there. To test the speed of your site, it's hooked up with Google, so it's using Google's Page Speed Insights and everything. But it will actually, one of the things it actually does, so we've made this tool, I'll talk more about it, but we're always evolving it, and I wanted it to not just be able to tell you stuff, but to do stuff for you. So if it finds a big image, and this is totally free. You'll do it on your first run. The report is free, and you can do this on there. If it finds an image that's too big, it will resize it. It will look at the site code. It will see what size it should be, and it will resize it for you, and it will deliver it for you at the right size. So you can just download it and upload it onto your website, and that can really help your site speed. That's not the only thing that helps site speed, of course, but it is just so often it's the main thing, and it is the thing you can do yourself. So that's why I want to flag it up. We do a lot of speed optimization work for people, and it's someone will come to us just with a sluggish website and ask us to make it faster. And you've got to really weigh up. You need to understand why your site is slow, because some people will just say, oh, buy more powerful hosting. But if you just buy more powerful hosting, you could just be throwing money away, because hosting can get, if you're paying an increased amount every month, that really compounds and gets to be a lot. And it might have just been a really small little update, or you might have just needed to sort your images out a bit on your website. So don't just throw money at hosting. There's also the chance that some problems with websites actually spread to fill whatever space they've got available. So if you buy bigger hosting, and it's basically a bigger container for your site, the problem just spreads to fill that bigger container, and then you buy an even bigger container and the problem just spreads even more. So really try and get someone to help you to understand what the issue is, and then decide what's the most pragmatic, sensible approach. Should you throw more money at hosting, or pay to have your site fixed or updated, and you work out between you which it is. Sometimes the site is absolutely fine and it is just the hosting. Sometimes the hosting should be adequate and the site just needs a few little tweaks. This just comes to mind because it's kind of connected to site speed. Your site can be so slow that it just effectively might as well be down as far as Google is concerned. So you've got to really keep an eye on your site availability. Make sure you're not down. It's a really big deal for us if any of the sites that are really hinge on SEO go down, because it was just really damaging in Google's eyes. If Google finds that you go down, it just might stop sending people to you because it doesn't think you're so reliable. The client with like over 1 million visitors a day, they don't have downtime, and it's not often you say someone doesn't have downtime, but they have. We've got such an architecture in place for them that one server has an issue, another one is scaled up immediately, and lots of load balancing, but as well just like lots of auto scaling and stuff. Lots going into that. But yeah, we've had other people. Site Vitals, the tool I mentioned, it does free uptime monitoring. So if you don't monitor your site's uptime, or even if you do, but you want to look at these other reports, do go and check it out, because someone the other day used it and they didn't realize that their site was having outages all the time. And they were just using it because they were a friend, and I said, oh yeah, you should use this. So they put it on, and then they were like, wow, we didn't know we had this like brewing problem. They had a file that a cache file was getting too big and building it, but it kept crashing. The site kept having outages, and they just didn't know. And obviously you don't want that to be the moment that a customer goes to see you. So a slight problem is that we've built this tool called Site Vitals. And the reason we've done it is because we've spent 20 years, 19 years running 18A, 24 years. That's failure. And we have seen 20 years worth of problems that people have that could be avoided if someone could have seen it coming, if someone could have been watching that thing. And our clients don't have full-time developers. They can't pay us to be full-time. And even if someone does have a full-time developer, these aren't necessarily, they're important things, but a full-time developer, you don't hire a full-time developer to just sit and check your pictures aren't too big. They have other things to be doing. So we've made a tool called Site Vitals that checks a lot of these things for you, and keeps an eye on everything. It alerts you of the urgent stuff, but it also, I was going to say quietly lets you know, and I sound like ChatGPT. Do not let me stop talking like an LLM. But it just lets you know about stuff that's like slipping, the like gradual shift stuff. And the reason that it's like it's not a problem, but what my problem is that I keep mentioning it through the talk, and I feel like I keep dropping it into conversation. But the problem, and it makes me feel like you are going to think I have arranged the topics of this talk around what Site Vitals covers, but it's actually the inverse of that. The thing is that all of these things that are super important to you are why we made Site Vitals. We have made Site Vitals tick all these boxes and look at all these important things, because it comes from 20 years of helping people with their websites. and knowing what matters. So I actually said to Claude, like Claude AI, I was like, Claude, this is my presentation, uploaded the files. Should I just mention Site Vitals at the end? Because else I'm going to be name dropping it all along. And Claude was like, nah, because it does that and it does that and it does. So now I just got to keep mentioning it. Right. So that's why I'm doing that. Let me. Oh, yeah, right. No. Oh, there. It's lost my little. I'm sorry, this didn't happen this morning. I'm going to stop presenting and go again because it lost my little screen I can present from. Now, if I. Sorry, I'll just. Again, that's better. I just lost it. When you see the little frame with all the notes, if you've got any notes and stuff, and I just lost it. Right. Cool. So this is just sort of the rationale behind it. A site caught early is a 5-minute fix. The same issue discovered by a customer, a client, or your boss is a very different kind of afternoon. So it's kind of going into that whole thing of knowing how that feels. And every recommendation, so it tells you about the big alerts, of things that are emergencies. It tells you about the stuff that's gradually slipping, and it's going to have a digest soon that tells you like weekly. This was all right in there last week, but we can see this is starting to impact your Google Search Console results. You need to act on this now. A note for agencies, because I know we've got some agencies. So if you're not an agency, you need to close your ears. What we found by accident, because we made this to help clients, but what we found is that it actually really helps agencies because it helps them always stay ahead of problems. It helps them always be able to be proactive to the client and say, by the way, I think we should be doing this now. And it's just really helps strengthen those relationships as well as helps like build the work that you're doing for them. If you're on the agency plan, it's like £1.50 a website or something a month, and you don't need to find much wrong with a website each month to make that your £1.50, but you're building that relationship. Some of the things, do you need to know the restaurant's Cozy Club? We looked after their websites, and they just were helping them go through a period of scaling. And they rang us one day to say a customer said their site was down, and it wasn't actually down. Their font had stopped working, and it looked like it was broken. And uptime tracking doesn't tell you that, so we built Site Vitals to catch it. Someone the other day paid me to do an SEO audit of their site, and I made them a beautiful crafted title tag. It was so perfect that I was really pleased with this title tag. Put it on their homepage. The title tag is what shows in the tab on your browser, and it's often what Google shows for people to click on in Google search results. And it is, for me, the single most important thing. If you only do one SEO thing, make sure your homepage title tag is really, really nice, really good, really optimized, the most important words at the beginning. I'd done them a perfect title tag. They put it on their website. And then last week, I also set them up with Site Vitals. And last week, Site Vitals emailed me to say their title tag was too short. I made that title tag. That title tag is amazing. I've got to tell Tom that something's wrong with Site Vitals because Site Vitals obviously just made a mistake. And then I went and checked this client's website, and they had overwritten my beautiful title tag with home, the word home, which is awful and rubbish. And if it hadn't been for Site Vitals, that would have gone unseen forever because they wouldn't have noticed, and I wasn't going back to that site. So it's just little things that it catches. It's all graphs and tables and stuff, or you can just use the reports that it gives you. It also accidentally does competitor analysis because it's looking at your website from the outside in. For agencies or anyone technical, it does also do server checks, scheduled tasks like cron jobs. It's got MCP, it's got an API, but from the outside, you can put your competitors in it. And then you can tell them, and I think that restaurants that I spoke to this morning, I think they've been doing that because they've like signed up, and then you see other reports coming through for like other restaurant chains who weren't on the call. So anyway, I think they're all looking at their competitors. It shows you if your competitor changes their language. It shows you if they've started using new tools, things like that. So, right. A big thing that has been important in Google for, well, it's what we're getting to has been important for Google for ages, but this is particularly an AI thing, is your voice. Use your voice of experience. For Gemini, for ChatGPT, for Claude, write things in the first person. Write things like you are experiencing them. My son is 12 and he sometimes writes blog posts for me for a things to do website we run. And he says, oh, but mum, should I say that I like that bit or that I didn't like that bit? I mean, you are 100% should say that. You need to have your experience in there. It has to have your tone of voice in there. And this is the big thing that March was all about. March has really, really lent more into EEAT, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So that has been a Google thing for a long time. I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's just the fact that it's more accentuated now. And that is why we looked at those tags for same as, knows about, and skills, because it's really trying to hammer home. Whereas this morning I was talking to a lot of restaurants, I feel like on today's call I'm going to be talking to a lot of individuals where you can hammer in your personal opinion, your personal skill set, your personal experience, and really, really hammer into your website, your personal skills. Something to keep in mind, this is from a very famous digital marketer, Neil Patel, last September. You don't chase rankings. This is if you were looking at LLMs, but it's kind of with Gemini in mind, we're kind of crossing the line between Google SEO and Gemini. You don't chase rankings, you build content for LLMs to reference, even if your page never breaks into the top 10, because this isn't typical getting high in Google. This is getting mentioned in that AI overview as well. The focus shifts from traffic to trust signals. So clear formatting, semantic structure, and authoritative insights. Now, you might want to go back through these slides later and kind of get your head around that. But the point is, you might have some pages that are really good if someone comes there from a Google search result and it converts them or whatever. But then you have these other pages that are just structured that bit differently, like we're going to go through, to tell you to really serve up what the LLMs want. Awards and accreditations. A really important thing is to have awards and accreditations on your website so that, again, Google knows what you're good at and what you're known for. I do an awkward, horrible little sideways smile in photos, and now my husband's pointed it out. I can't unsee it, and it's in like every photo of me ever. Chunk your content for AI, but for Gemini. So we're talking about for Google and Gemini. I also just thought that because it's all about writing about you as an expert, if you're going to be writing, because of the March update, what I'm trying to say is this is about the March update, which is about positioning you as an expert. If you're going to be writing new content, positioning yourself, you should do it the way AI wants it, because that will also be good for traditional search. And it saves doing it twice. So write about yourself as an expert in this way so that it's good for AI and it's good for traditional Google. So it's called chunking. I really don't like that term, but it's about putting it into little chunks. So I will send these slides over, but it's so that you have clear headings. So this is your H1, H2, H3 tags, like you probably are familiar with. And this is the bit that always feels a bit weird. You have a clear opening line or a short paragraph that sums up the article. So I don't know if you've heard of the acronym TLDR, but it stands for too long didn't read. Now, too long didn't read is kind of a spoiler. It's a spoiler at the beginning of your article. We'll look at an example in a minute. But you tell them what the article is about and the conclusion at the beginning, and AI can just grab that and go, fine. And someone else who's interested will hang around and read it. One idea per paragraph. Use bullet points and lists where suitable. Thankfully, because we're not burying information in long waffly passages, those recipe sites where you have to read someone's life story before you get to the ingredients, they should be no more once people cotton on to doing this. Bullet points and lists, because people like different forms of data. Different people like different types of information, but seeing a bullet point list can draw your eye to it because it feels easy. That's the same for robots. Include tables for comparison and charts if you can, because that shows like that there could be useful data here. And include some FAQs, ideally with schema markup. There's a link there to AI profiles that lets you do some free FAQs, because it will look at your website and write some FAQs. But I can't emphasize enough how important FAQs are, which is how useful they are, right? Like the things to do website that my son writes the blog post for. like we get the most traffic for like, should a kid wear wellies to Lapland UK, because my friend went and I just grilled them for information about it and wrote it up in FAQs. So FAQs give you, not only are you asking questions that someone might be asking for the answer to, but you also it just gives you the opportunity to say lots of different things about your services. Give summaries during your text, such as to summarize, or a common mistake is, and break things into like steps, like step 1, step 2, and try and keep your tone conversational, because more people are doing voice search now. So if people are chatting a question, then that is more how you want to have written your work. When optimizing content for AI, but we mean Gemini and Google and humans, you must get to the point early and optimize content to reduce cognitive load. And those people with their waffly recipe sites, there have been tests for years and years and years that for Google, it's not about page count, it's about how well you answer the question. And there used to be tests I do in my SEO training where you'd show someone, how do you boil an egg? Or how long does it take to boil an egg, or whatever, and the answer could be so short, and it didn't matter. It wasn't about length, it was about just giving the best answer, and that was in Google a long time ago. So this is a really good example of a page that I've seen that came up for me in Google, but it would also tick the box of being good for Gemini as well as traditional search. It's got a question in the title: is eating raw oats healthy? Then that first paragraph above the cityscape sale banner is 3 sentences that really is a bit of a spoiler to what the whole article is about. Then the next one, you've got what are raw oats, bullet points, and then the next one, you've got a summary box. And that wasn't at the end of the article, that was just partway through, because every so often during the article, it had a summary box. Now, I've done all these nice slides, and then yesterday, Tom and the team updated, I didn't know they were working on this at the time, updated their AI content analysis. So now, and I'll send you the link, you can go to Site Vitals, put your web page in it, and it will tell you how well you have optimized the site for AI and for SEO. It does a lot of SEO checks and AI checks, and it tells you what you can improve on. But also, there's a link in the slides when I send them around to Tom's blog post. It tells you what it's actually measuring, what it's looking for, how many words it thinks is good in a paragraph, what's too long, what's too short. And then last night, I wondered why you were still working late. And it's because you've made a browser extension. So that is being submitted to Mozilla now. I think it's going to Chrome soon. And you will be able to send around a link to anyone on my mailing list when it's live. But you'll be able to look at any page of your website, nothing to well, you install the browser plugin, but nothing from us to like create an account or anything like that. And just any page you look at, it tells you what you could do. There's a list down the right-hand side of what you can improve on. You click on it and it jumps you to that part of the page and tells you what it is you need to do to make it better. Fresh content has always been super, super important for SEO. But I'm hearing that it's almost the end of evergreen now. You used to have that blog post that was like, it wasn't timely, so it was just good all the time, but that's kind of gone. And here, like SEO, I went to an SEO conference in February, and there are people doing talks from like Ahrefs and Wix and big companies like that. But yeah, even your evergreen stuff, you've kind of got to revisit it and rehash it and update it and make it fresh again, go back through it. Also, something that this isn't about March's updates, this is just something in SEO land that I've noticed. People don't seem to realize the importance of interlinking their content. So if you've got a page on your website, if you're writing a blog post and it's talking about a service you offer, link to that service. When you add another blog post, reference a previous blog post. Keep people moving around. See, if you were a shop, you would totally have, you might also like as related items to buy. And like Netflix, when you finish something on Netflix, it presents you something else. You don't read a page and then let them leave. You link to other things that they might be interested in. But that is crucially also telling Google, this is relevant here, this is relevant here. These are all signs leading into this one page. I haven't got time to go into a full interlinking strategy, but if you had one service page and you wrote lots of different blog posts that all linked into that one service page, and the service page didn't link out to them, they all linked into the service page, that is just emphasizing in Google, oh, look at all these things leading up that hierarchy. That's the page I need to take the most notice of. So this sounds obvious, but we had someone come to us asking why they weren't being mentioned by ChatGPT. We had a look at them. It's because their site was blocking robots or blocking AI. So just something to be wary of. 18 months ago, everyone was very wary of AI and didn't want Gemini grabbing this and didn't want OpenAI getting that. Now everyone wants to be mentioned by them. But things were done back then, to 18 months ago or whatever, to stop them grabbing all your data. So just check. Usually it's yourwebsite.com/robots.text. It's not always, but it's often /robots.text. So you can have a look there and see if there's any disallow rules in there, and you'll see something like Gemini, Googlebot disallow, and things like that. So just look if you're disallowing anything. Or, so it sounds like a broken record, if you do the free audit thing at Site Vitals, that also will tell you if you're okay or if you're blocking anyone. Super quickly, just a recap on general SEO, because that's not what really we're about today, and I don't want to take up everyone's time, but SEO is about building links back to your website, and it still is, unfortunately. Google still wants you to have good links from authoritative sites leading back to you. AI is more about citations, so you want to get mentioned by the press, you want to get on that person's blog, you want to get on that person's podcast. You don't need a link back to you, it's just your name. And I've got a link in the checklist I'm going to give you of how to go about getting some free PR coverage, because that can really help you with both link backs and with getting citations. Research and results. 99.99% of people love stats, I expect, but the point is that robots do, because they're always trying to give the right answers. And so by giving them stats and data, they feel like that is a reliable, credible source that they can cite. Social media. I'm very, very sorry that SEO in 2026 is very omnipotent, however you want to say it, omnipotent. You need to be in all the places all of the time, which sucks. It would be nice to say that social media didn't matter anymore, but it's looking for chatter. Google has always wanted to rely on social signals, and now AI is letting Google use that a bit more. You want people to have conversations about your content. Focus on Reddit, the sort of swamp of the internet, but actually there are nice places and bad places, and in a big place. So Reddit, there's an article I'm linking to in my checklist of how to use Reddit for the first time, because you absolutely want to be on there. Reddit and LinkedIn, and Pinterest I've read as well, but Reddit and LinkedIn and possibly Pinterest. Not to say don't use Instagram, because I do. And I was looking at something that I talked about it on Instagram, and I came up in Google on my Instagram. So Google indexes Instagram basically. So, but it's just not one of the key ones for AI citations. But on that point, yeah, a few different things on that point. Make sure your Instagram is indexable by robots, because the only reason I can come up in Google on my Instagram is because I've turned it on. So there's some screenshots here for you to follow later to make sure you can come up in Google. So what might be next? Well, just like looking ahead for you for a minute, because I have got quite a hard finish today because of the school run. I don't know if you've heard of model collapse. I don't know. I'm not necessarily one that's saying it's going to happen, but one interesting thing is so I mentioned how Google didn't model collapse is when AI puts out so much rubbish into the world, so much fake information, and other people regurgitate it and respin it, and then AI takes in that fake information again, and it just keeps going until the LLM, the large language model, collapses. Because, do you see what I did there though? It's like a catwalk model, and they have collapsed. The model collapses because it's feeding on false information that it created in the first place. And the reason that came to is just so that you've heard the term. People are saying it's coming, but people have said that for a year or more, so I don't really know. But one interesting thing was Google haven't officially said what they changed in the March updates. This is just based on the research of everything. But one of the first things I read was that as of the 1st of July, they were going to drop mobile websites which weren't completely user-friendly, which didn't have all their full functionality. So they did something a while ago around, I think it was 2024, there was a date in July that they had a bit of a mobile clampdown. But this was saying 1st of July, it had to be fully usable. Basically, I can't find anything. It was on a London hosting company's blog, and I can't find anything else that backs that. So I think that's false information. So then that's kind of leading into the whole, it's starting to be out there. Someone else is citing it. I then cited it at one point, and then I took it down when I thought, actually, I don't think this is true. Google pushing AI and video. So Google, like the rest of us, sort of need to keep up. And well, they really do need to keep up. They can't just like decide, oh, we're Google, we're fine, because there are so many whippersnappers biting at their tails, and kids are loving TikTok. Young people are watching so much video. So Google is therefore featuring video a lot in its search results. So that is something for you to have in mind. And also it's really trying to keep people chatting. So Gemini, they're really trying to push Gemini a lot. I don't know if you've seen, just in the last couple of days, I haven't seen it personally yet, but I've heard about it, that Google, when you click on one of the suggested links from the AI overview, Google opens a second pane and brings in your website in just a pane next to it. So you're not visiting the website, you're just being able to toggle between the suggestions and change website. Well, what that means is that someone can too easily flick to a different site rather than stay on yours. For Google, it's keeping younger people feeling it's kind of quick thing. But for you, it means you've got to really grab attention and make sure that you get them to stay there. You need to put as much as you can on one page and make it really clear instantly. And being less reliant on clicks. I don't know if this is the case for anyone here, but we've certainly got clients who are reliant on advertising. So people like publishers, newspapers, people going to the websites and clicking on ads to make them money. And the clicks are going to go down. So for those clients, we're already a while ago suggesting, right, what else can you do so that you're not reliant on Google, you're not reliant on clicks? When people are coming now, and they are in their droves, what can we do to get their email addresses basically and deliver them services so that they will keep coming back directly, not via Google? So, but it also means that when you do just get this, there's the other thing that Google have done a patent that they might want to show an AI generated page that they generate before they send someone to your site. So someone clicks on you in search results, they see an AI generated page that Google made, and from there you decide the visitor might not go to your website. So that's another less click. Your details have been shown, but it just all adds to why you need to be super clear with all your trust signals and all your structured data, so that if Google do that, they can show everything that you want the user to see easily on this AI generated page. And I think their reasoning behind that is that they know more about the user than you do, so they can tailor the content to that user. That's what they're saying, why they might do it. Super quickly, Agentic AI, ChatGPT rolled out ChatGPT shopping last year, and now they pulled it back again. Agentic AI is when your website can be, when AI can do things. So at the moment, we've got generative AI. I can talk more about this another time or in a reel if anyone's interested. But at the moment, we've got generative AI, which means it generates stuff for you. It generates text. Claude will write you something really lovely. Agentic AI will do things for you. It will go to a website and make a booking. It will go to a website and buy something. It will go to a website and fill in a form to book you a dentist appointment. So you need to make sure soon, maybe next year onwards, that your website is ready to be used by robots, not just read by them. I'm doing another series of talks, May, June, July, or September, about all this sort of stuff. It's also a bit for agencies as well, because it's about how we're going to be selling websites in 2027. What's going to change? Are we going to be using Claude Design? Are we just, everything's going to be on different platforms? Is WordPress over? That all kind of stuff. I don't think it is yet, but anyway. So all of that sort of stuff. But I'll send around links if anyone wants to join in on that. There's your checklist that when I send it over, you'll be able to go through, grab all the articles I've said about and any links and everything. If you've got any questions, I would love it if you followed me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I post a lot there, and things like the blog post, like 5 really useful things you can do with Google Search Console data, was something I shared last week. And I really hope you found this useful. But I'm not going to say, and if you did, but I'm going to say, I would love it if you could leave me a Google review. I'm just going to put the link in chat. That's the problem. I keep there we go. But please don't mention my name. So, does this work with Shopify websites? So yes, anything. I think you asked that, Suzanne. I think you asked that at the point of AI profiles. And yes, it does, because it works with any website. Shopify, there are plugins you can use for Shopify. for structured data, but they will be around the shop information, so the product. So you should do that. This would work for about your company organization, and you just link to it from the footer. Or if you're talking about Site Vitals, then absolutely that works for any platform as well. So either way, the answer is yes. With Google reviews, is it worth including keywords when replying to a customer's review, as long as it sounds natural and not keyword stuffing? Well, it is literally one of the things Google have just said not to do, to ask people to use keywords. I think it would be fine as long as it did sound natural, but it would have to sound completely natural. So yeah, if you're comfortable that it sounds natural, then yes. If it's kind of, it would be, I guess for me, I mean to the level of natural, because I'm a bit of a goody two shoes of sticking to the rules. I mean so natural that it would be weird for it not to say it. It would sound wrong if you didn't use the word. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so because I think a reply would be like, oh, it was so lovely working with you, really pleased you had a good time, or it was so great, I love the end result, or something. And none of those replies kind of have the keywords in them. So if I said, oh, it was a pleasure building your WordPress website, I would kind of feel like I was keyword stuffing it. So yeah, maybe give me an example, Jake, or maybe email me afterwards. Not mentioning a name in reviews is going to be odd as a self-employed one-woman band. Yeah, totally. I really think so. Yeah, I really think so. I had someone this morning leave a nice one, and you could tell they'd made an effort not to put my name in, but I don't think it was natural. I guess you haven't asked them to mention your name. And this is where I think Google hopefully will get sensible, and it will see that you are not a chain of restaurants. You are you, and possibly even JJC Yoga. I'm guessing one of those J's is Jackie. So your name is very prominent in the company. So yeah, so I hope Google will work it out if someone does do it. With too long don't read summaries, are all three variants equally valid? And can these be after the intro paragraph? All three variants. What do you mean all three variants, Adrian? Or drop me an email afterwards. Most of my reviews mention my name. Yeah, totally. Bullets. So you could have bullet points. Yeah, so in the if you have your summary right at the top, it can be 3 sentences, or it can be 1 sentence and 3 paragraphs. Yeah, it's just kind of this first opening little, I would normally do it as like 3 sentences in 1 paragraph at the top, one little in a mouthful kind of 3-sentence paragraph at the top. Then you go into your full article, and in your full article you use bullet points, you use text and paragraphs, and you use these summary blocks over and over again wherever. Also, maybe you mean the summaries throughout the rest of it. So they could be bullet points, but the idea is that it's something that AI can just lift and give back. So I kind of think sentences would be good in those summaries. I think use bullet points in the text itself and use sentences in the summaries.
Sure, no, I use them already, but I'm just trying to hone it down and make it perfect. So yeah, maybe I'll follow an email.
Yeah, send me an example if you want. Yeah. Has anyone got any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Well, I will send you around a recording and all the notes once the recording is ready. I do need to fly now for the school run. But thank you all for coming. It was lovely to see new faces. Thank you. And I'll speak to you soon.
Take care. Thanks. Bye.